we're not gonna keep moving that.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
How many?
We live?
Hi,
Gary.
Yeah.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everybody. Welcome to this council meeting. We have Councillor Gary Kelleher and Councillor Michael Laws on Zoom. Welcome both to the meeting. Welcome to staff, and unfortunately we haven't got public with us today because we made that call earlier on because of COVID level 2, but we are live. So people out there will be able to, if they're interested, able to connect and watch the meeting. We have no public forum today. Moving on to item 3, confirmation of the agenda. I'll just confirm that the agenda is, it's confirmed as circulated. Seconded by Carmen. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Conflict of interest. Item 4. This is the same reminder of the need to stand aside from decision making when a conflict arises between their role or your role as an elected representative and any private or other external interest that you may or might have. Moving on to item 5, confirmation of the minutes. I will move that that we confirm the minutes of the 25th of August council meeting as a true and correct record, noting that 7.2 has just been modified to reflect the actual 7.2, and by a seconded by Kate. Are there any comments? Everyone's happy enough? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. Moving on to under item 7, matters for council's consideration. 7.1, update number 4 to the minister. The report is to present for adoption by council the 4th progress report to the Minister for the Environment in accordance with Section 27 of the Resource Management Act 1991 in relation to the recommendations made under Section 24A of the RMA 1991. We have with us Gwyneth, GM Strategy, Policy and Science. Welcome, Gwyneth. I'm not sure whether your microphone is on, but thank you. We've got recommendations there as set out, 1, 2 and 3, that we received the report. Number 2, that we approve the 4th report to the Minister. That reports on progress against the recommendations contained in his letter, 18th November 2019. And also number 3 notes that the next report will be required to be provided by the 31st of March 2022. Seems a long way away, but anyway, welcome, Anita.
Thank you.
We're in your hands. You're gathering breath. That's okay.
I'm trying to eat my lunch, but it's overrated, right?
You might want to refer to the GM then.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
So really, I think the paper speaks to itself. But as for every report, we just demonstrate to the Minister what we said last time and what we said this time, so that there's a transparent progress in there. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Oh, just before I go to Marion and then Hillary, I don't want to be pedantic, but page 31, the date of the council meeting in August was the 25th rather than the 26th.
Thank you.
Okay.
I will correct that.
Okay, Marion, Hillary, then Brian.
I've got 2 issues, Stuart, and the first is a pedantic one, or I may be really wrong. By the 31st of December 2023, a new land and water plan for Targa includes, and if you look at, I think you've got the word the waste plan review.
Yep. Yes. So currently we have a water plan and a waste plan. It says currently we have a water plan and a waste plan, and as part of developing a new land and water regional plan, we will draw the water and waste plans into one plan under that new land and water plan. So we've completed the waste plan review and we've reported through the Land and Water Governance Group on that. And we're in the final stages of completing the water plan review for that as well.
So will the waste plan review come to the council or through?
And we're just taking guidance from the guys on the Land and Water Regional Plan Governance. I don't believe there's been a request to bring the review itself through, but we can take direction on that.
Okay, the second
Something
question.
we can pick up at the next gathering of the
Sorry,
governance group.
the second question is to do with the resolution, and it's the resolution. It's just over the next page. I haven't got a 31 of 98. It requests that the Technical Advisory Group be requested to provide regular reports to Strategy and Planning Committee on progress towards finalising the required science for the catchment. There are two things that worry me in there and this is me receiving a letter, okay? I put on another hat. I need to know, don't I, as Minister, what the Technical Advisory Group is, who set it up. I need to know some more stuff about it. And I would like to know, if I were the Minister receiving this letter or this report, I would like to know sort of what science is being requested by this group. And I'm just doing this, people, not from continuing a raru, but from actually being the person receiving the letter. There's an awful lot that's not stated in there. And I always asked for no surprises, thanks.
You want me?
Right, comment. Happy to.
I don't know the answers.
What is it?
What I'm saying is,
exactly.
what I'm saying is that in the statement, it's got a resolution.
Yep. So
And
that's
it
the
refers to something called the Technical Advisory Group. And the most we've gotten it is established in 2019 to advise ORC. I think it's quite vague as to what it is. And then in the motion, after it, there is no comment about that maybe you are at the moment determining what the science is that's being requested.
So you'd like a fuller explanation?
So we can provide.
I'd like a fuller explanation around there. Because if I were a minister, that is the question I would be sending back straight away.
So we can talk, I'm just conscious of dates, so we can talk to the tag's been reconvened. We've had a meeting. I'm just conscious that it hasn't reported back to council. It won't until the 13th of October. And so, but we can definitely give some story in terms of the purpose of tag as per the terms of reference.
Yep.
We can talk about when it was established, and we can. I can talk to what we talked on the meeting. It's a problem is it hasn't come to council. It's a bit of an awkward timing situation where while we've had a discussion as tag and we're going to bring a program of work to back to the council, it's not something that we've formally done and we won't deal until the 13th of October.
Or maybe you can even say that.
Yeah, we can. So I can talk to process for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
In an attempt to be conciliatory,
Yeah.
the letter that he had, the Minister for the Environment, who has sent a letter to me, which is in my chair's report.
Yeah, and I've read it
No, that wasn't my question. But
carefully.
what you're raising can be included in that response.
Oh, to that letter?
Yes, because I'm
That's fair
imagining that's best done post the 13th of October. Well, either if it's before that, when we've actually got the information.
You could make a note in here saying this will be
Correct.
further elucidated in the letter from the chair to the minister later.
If I could help, there's probably two parts. I think we could talk about the terms of reference for the tag and who they are in this report, and then an update could be provided in a response back to the minister.
Phew.
The question is, will that response come here? So you know what I mean? Like if because I'm guessing you want to be.
C'est la vie. I'm just trying to make it. I said, I'm sorry, I'm playing a ministerial role.
Sure.
When I know there's been a raru and it goes over so sweetly like that, I actually want to ask some questions and expect some answers.
in an attempt to cover off issues, the full council in terms of the response. How about when a draft letter is prepared that we can have it circulated to councillors before it's signed off, if there isn't a formal meeting before it's sent?
Thank you.
Everyone's okay about that?
Not what.
My advice would be you probably need to bring it here because it won't just be council necessarily who have an interest in the response. That would be my only thought.
Okay, so the letter was sent to the council. Are you suggesting, Sarah, there will be others other than the council wanting to cite that letter before it's sent? Is that what you mean?
Not before it's sent, but I think
Record it.
well, otherwise, if it's so, this is just my advice around transparency. If the response is worked out behind closed doors and then the letter is sent, and how else does it get public? Would be the question.
Should be
Given
included in the
that the
papers.
minister's letter is public in your report today.
Can we do that as a fourth motion, that the final version of the letter be made public?
That's what we normally do
So-
with letters,
yeah,
but
yeah.
Are we talking about this letter before you today, or are we talking about the other
That's
letter?
the-
Sorry, I'm a bit confused
We've
now.
moved on to the second
This
letter.
is public
Yeah,
in the
that's
sense
What was the
that,
second letter?
I think we just deal with this one.
So just to be clear, the report in front of us is our 6-month report to the Minister on our commitment under the section 24A, or section 27 and section 24A. Then the conversation went into the second letter, which is a response to Minister Parker's letter about the RPS legal challenge and the around the Manuhira Kia and the time frame. He was looking for some indication of the time frame that we would require to settle on the delivering on the incomplete science. So does that help,
yes.
Gwyneth?
And so what I'm hearing I'm requested to add is some more fulsome pieces into this letter, which is around the background of TAG, the who, the purpose and the process to date.
Yes.
But the rest of that conversation will be contained in the response to the minister's letter.
Yes. And how about we deal with the minister's letter when we deal with the chair's report and how that's done in a transparent and open fashion. So is that okay? Hillary, then Brian.
I'd like page 31, the top of page 31, to have in it, as it has below, the resolution about Arrow and Cadrona, rather than what I'm uncomfortable with is no additional work is proposed on the flows and allocation, which is not that part of the sentence, but and the noted numbers will be included in the proposed land and water regional plan. I just don't think we can do that. And why I'd like the resolution in there is that I acknowledge that the resolution says exactly that. And I don't think we can tell the minister that those are the figures that are going to be in the land and water plan at this point, despite the fact that we've had a resolution saying that. So I'm more than happy to have the resolution in there. So as we're reporting to the minister what the resolution said, and he can make of it what he will. But if we separately make that comment, I don't think that, I think it's better to tell him by telling him what the resolution said.
You're referring to the paragraph at the bottom of 31 and the top of 30.
All right.
Sorry, bottom of 30 and top of 31.
Yes.
We can include the resolution.
So we can
Yeah,
just
good.
change it to say no additional work is proposed in these rivers, full stop. The full resolution from council is.
Yeah, because that, as I say, that is what the resolution is, so that's fine. But thank you.
Brian.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for this report. The report, of course, does refer to the 31st of December 2023 date for a new land and water plan. My question is, based on the work that we've done, the Arrow, the Padrona and the Manuhera Care, are we on track currently to achieve that date? Or are there things that we need to do differently?
Well, yes, we have a full work program that we're on track to deliver. If that's what, I'm not saying timelines aren't tight, but we are on track to deliver our full work program.
Yeah, but I mean, are there, like, for example, the Manuhera Care, we spent $3.5–4 million. Is that, we've had a tag, we've got a rollout of the tag. Is that what we're proposing in each FMU in terms of expenditure, in terms of focus?
No, I don't have that much of a budget. You haven't approved that through the LTP, and the consultation work that we've been discussing, or started discussing through the Land and Water Plan Regional Plan Group is a slightly different model from the Manuhera Care. We're not planning to replicate the Manuhera Care in every FMU.
And as a matter of interest, why is that?
Why?
Yeah, why?
Well, there's a number of things that have happened along the way that have indicated it wasn't fully fit for purpose in terms of, and so we've changed and adapted, and that's part of the paper. I cannot remember when we bought it, but it was actually earlier. It was in lockdown last year where we brought to you a paper that talked about a governance model for the Land and Water Plan. That it was during lockdown in April, I think, June. And that was something that we engaged our partners in iwi with and established, and that's what we're working to, is that structure.
So the expectations, for example, through the Arrow, Padrona and the Manuhera Care might have to be different for the next stage.
Well, we've brought to you a couple of, again, I think this is what the people are alluding to. We've brought to you a couple of papers that talk about our approach more broadly. It takes, in some FMUs, it takes, I guess, a regional model approach. And then in other FMUs, we go into a lot more detailed FMU specific modelling. So those papers, again, in November, we talked about in terms of the hydrology and the science program, but also in June this year, we also brought us more holistic science program to you, and those papers reflect the approach that we're taking.
Brian, could I just get you to use your microphone? Sorry, if you had another question, or you're done?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other queries, questions? Kevin?
Look, on page 31, I'm exceptionally comfortable with what staff have prepared, so I just want to know that. Apart from that first, where we've added that resolution, but from there, I think that fully explains what's happening, and I'm very comfortable with that. Where I would start to lose comfort of, in fact, we did not report back towards October, at the next Stratton planning meeting. I'd then become uncomfortable, but I mean that's the deadlines that we've said, and you could perhaps put the date of that meeting that's got to come up, and that would be the report. So I don't think we need any more detail than that. So I don't think you need to. You've told them that you've got the technical advisory group established to give us a further science. So what more do you need? So.
Any other queries? Just a comment from me, just looking through the response, science planning, consenting, monitoring and enforcement, land management, over the last 6 months, it's a massive amount of work that's going on. And I know we've beefed up in, science, the science team and policy team, obviously the monitoring team as well, land management. So it's a big change going on, and and I hope, we're not getting growing pains, but there's a lot going on. And I think that we're moving into a much sounder policy space as we do that, and a much sounder consenting space and monitoring space and land management space. And I know we've still got a long way to go, but it's pretty impressive what's going on, from my point anyway. Is there any other discussion?
We're just going to, since we've written this report on page 28, I think it is, we talk about the mediation on urban provisions for Plan Change 8 happening on the 4th and 5th of October. That's actually been vacated. So we'll just update that occasionally. So we're no longer doing it on the 4th and 5th.
Despite your hard work, because of COVID restrictions and the numbers of people in the mediator, the commissioners in Auckland. So it will be rescheduled.
No further questions. You're good, Sarah.
Yeah.
45 new cases today. in Auckland.
Happy to move those three recommendations. A seconder, Kate, and just noting. Sorry, I just won't talk. I think Michael Laws is having technical problems,
Yes,
and I think that's what you're trying to sort out.
Yes, I'm just,
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Awesome. Hey, so the three motions have been moved and seconded, moved by Carmen, seconded by Kate, noting that there's going to be a more fuller description around tag, etc., leading into that resolution that's in the paper. There's also going to be the resolution from Arrow and Cadrona, and also just the update with regards to the Plan Change 8 discussions. That's what I heard, the three things, the 3 points. Okay, I'll put those three motions. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Yep. Against? Yep. Do you want that recorded?
Yeah, I just don't believe you need to change
No,
it.
don't you tell me.
Okay.
No, you don't need to tell me.
That's right. Do you want to record it? Thank you.
Okay, it's recorded. Motion carried. Okay, moving on to item 7.2. Is everything under control with the electronics?
It's Warren.
Okay, work in progress.
We had
You ate my lunch then. I'll be back.
Let's go. Moving on to 7.2, freshwater farm plan regulation, copy of submission for noting, and also the approval for the winter grazing regulations as well. So we've got here the report, the two submissions, one for noting and the second one for approval.
Happy to move.
Happy to move. Moved by Kate, seconded by Carmen.
Yeah.
Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion, all three together. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to, thanks, Gwyneth. Thanks, Richard. Moving on to 7.3. Puerto Targa statement of corporate intent. I'm not sure whether Nick's coming to the.
He's here.
No, I just wasn't sure he's going to get to the table. That was all him.
Is it appropriate to move those recommendations now to talk to, or
I'll just see whether there's any questions
Cool,
first,
absolutely.
and then I'll go to you first. Okay.
I'll second it.
So this is the Puerto Targa Statement of Corporate Intent. The report is to receive Puerto Targa Statement of Corporate Intent and provide comment to the Port Board of Directors for their consideration regarding the document. Welcome, Nick. We've got the three recommendations there. We'll go to those in a moment. Is there anything that you want to comment on? Nothing whatsoever. Okay. Are there any questions before I go to Kevin, who's going to move the
I'd just like to
recommendation?
do a report from the port. The port is busy.
Oh, there you go.
Well, there seems to be an increased movement of freight boats going through, not just the big reds, but some other ones going through as well. It's been quite interesting.
Okay.
And because I sit in that seat and I watch it.
Cool. That's a question, is it, Brian? Brian.
Yeah, sure. Page 61 of 1 here. I think that no, it's 2.5%. Between 4%, 4%. The
Admit that the rate's going up.
I think if you have a look, I think part of the reason will be that the profitability is jumping up 5 million and then 10 million, but that'll be a bigger increase percentage-wise than what you've got in the equity value. So I think part of it will reflect that it's reasonably low at the moment because their profitability has dropped a little bit with COVID. So it'll be a return to the 4%. I think historically has been more what they've returned over the long term.
Kate.
I think it's a question. I feel like this is a more readable document. I haven't gone compared it to what it was, but it's got a really nice nuance to it. But one of the things that I think is happening is the harbour project plan work with the DCC, and I presume that the port will be involved in that. And I would have almost liked that highlighted. And but have we actually started conversations with the port about that?
No. The funding is in year 2.
Oh, year 2. Okay.
Yeah, if you recall to the workshop that they did with you in July, they specifically mentioned that they're expecting to be involved in that, and that's one of their focuses this year.
And that's, I thought it could have been picked up. The only other one is our key stakeholders, and it's just because we've just had a discussion that, and a couple of other things that have come to light. Community and iwi, and I'm just wondering whether that's mana whenua and community and iwi, because it's slightly different. I think they've got, and I would have put mana whenua separately. I don't know if that's, because...
It's a question that's more appropriate for iwi than us, I would have thought.
Okay, well, and I hope this, I hope this gets referred to them then, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Other queries, questions? So I'll go to Kevin, who's going to move the 3 recommendations, and Hillary's going to second them.
So look, I'll just make like a couple of comments, and certainly just to reinforce what Mr. Donnelly said to Councillor Scott is one thing we have learned from the Port Liaison Group meetings is that there is a continual drive within the port for continued efficiency gains and updating technologies and working as hard as they can to ensure that they are progressing in a very good vein. So that lift, they would be hoping for more activity, but also I think those gains that they're making with technology and efficiencies will be starting to show through. So that's very encouraging. They've got an exceptionally strong balance sheet. They're showing solid activity, which again, Councillor Hobbs reinforces that she's noting that, which is good. This document really takes me, is taking the port to a new level, I believe. And if you look at their materiality process, they've identified the most important environmental, social, economic and governance issues, not only to the company, but also to their stakeholders. Yeah. They're spending a lot of time with the stakeholders, from people bringing produce into the port right through to the end users at the other end. So there's a heck of a lot of work being done there. And if you look at their 6 capitals that they based it around, their human capital, their social and relationship, their natural capital, which is the harbour and beyond, their intellectual capital, the manufactured capital, which is their assets, and the financial capital, which is their value. They're linking all of that really together, and with a lens also taking into consideration the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is another great lens that they're putting over it. So, and what they've also done, and probably we don't really appreciate because they are still cogging on, is they've worked through both lockdowns through COVID and through this, they're protecting our border, keeping our border open. So the management and staff and the board have done an exceptional job through that. The board is really, I believe the board is exceptionally balanced, looking really strong at the value of the port to the full Targa community and indeed for the whole of the South Island. So I think we're in an exceptionally good spot. And with your indulgence, Chair, I'd wonder if it is appropriate again with this COVID pressures put on that we do acknowledge support by letter. Again, expressing not only the work of the board and management, but the entire staff right down to the last man packing those ships. So it has certainly been, the value is really coming through to our community.
Would you like to move a fourth recommendation?
If I could add that as a fourth.
A letter from myself to the board and management for all the.
Thank them for their efforts.
Person,
Yeah.
because there was a woman driving.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further speakers? If not, I'll put those 4 recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Nick. Moving on to the next item there, 7.4, Kurawao sale.
It's just coming out.
Good timing. Welcome, Peter. The report seeks council's approval for the sale and purchase, the sale and surplus land subject to the Targa Regional Council's Kurawao Endowment Lands Act 1994. There's 5 recommendations there. I won't read them out. I know this particular item has created some interest and some email dialogue, so to speak. And I know Gretchen and Brian and maybe 1 or 2 others and Marion. So there may be some questions from those councillors. I just need to flag that this is potentially heading into a commercial process.
Yeah.
So if we were going to delve into in a bit more detail around covenants or that type of discussion, we would need to move into non-public or deal with it under the deal with this item under our non-public section, which is probably not that far away. So just to give you a heads up there.
I'm wondering whether we do that then, because, well, I'd be happy to move that we go into public excluded, because that would be my first question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then we can have a full and frank discussion all at once.
Yeah.
Okay, you're happy to move?
Sorry, Peter.
Happy to move, Gretchen?
Yep.
Second, Carmen, that we deal with item 7.4 and non-public for the reasons of potential commercial sensitivity.
Yep. No.
Is that near enough?
Is 72H and 72I, Mr. Chair.
Oh, thank you. I should have asked the expert, sorry. Thank you. You've got that, Di? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against. Kerry, did you want to speak to that? Sorry.
Just before you did, will this be done now, or you'll move it to the public excluded portion of this meeting?
The latter of what you've just said. Yeah,
Go to the
move
input.
it. Yeah.
It has to be now, because we've already confirmed the agenda.
I thought it was now.
Sorry, it's
Misunderstood. Okay, so we need to. I was just trying to avoid going off the video.
Yes.
Would move to go back out of public excluded when appropriate, or release anything we wanted to later as well.
Yes.
Just for our viewers, we're moving into non-public shortly.
We're about to head back in live.
Okay.
Wrong.
Welcome back, everybody. We have now reconvened.
We're here.
And due to some technical issues, we are going to have to deal with item 7.4 at the conclusion of the public part of this meeting. And I'm going to ask Gretchen to withdraw her original motion and move that we deal with it, as I've said, in non-public at the conclusion of this public section of the
Yes,
council
I can
meeting.
just confirm that I'm happy to withdraw that and deal with it as you said. So yeah, in withdrawing, I'm withdrawing my motion to move into public excluded, and we can deal with that later on.
Michael's here again now.
Okay, and you were the seconder, I think, Carmen.
More than happy.
More than happy?
Chair.
Okay, and more than happy to second the
Yes,
new motion?
absolutely.
Okay, I'll put the new motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay. 7.5.
The rates.
This is the 7.5, the 2021 rates resolution correction. This is something that's obviously just popped up relatively recently. Nick, we've got a couple of recommendations there. I know there's been some email traffic with Kate and others, but you may want to just give a bit of an update and clarify the recommendation that you are promoting option 1, or I believe, and just talk us through the paper. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, so unfortunately, as this outlines, there was a mistake in the calculation of the rates per hectare for the East Tyree drainage scheme. So it means that those ratepayers have been over and undercharged. So although when you spread it over the whole lot of them, the average amount is relatively small, because there's two classifications that they get the biggest allocations of the total amount to be collected. The amounts that are that have been overcharged in those two classifications are larger, but it only affects in those areas a relatively small number of ratepayers. So we've looked at what we could do about this. There is actions that we can take in the Ratings Act. Unfortunately, the way the Ratings Act is written, it's really written to take account of if you were correcting basically all of your rates and you were impacting every single ratepayer. So in this case, the processes you've got to go through they're quite time consuming and complex, including if you were to correct all of them, you actually have to go and do a special consultative procedure. Although ironically in this case, we'd go through that, we'd be putting the rates number back to what we consulted on in the LTP anyway, because it's actually ended up with a slightly higher number than what was the number as per the consultation document. We don't want to go down that route because it's a smaller number of ratepayers and there'll be a cost of doing that. So we have looked at a way that we could do it outside of that, and that's what we're recommending, option 1, which is we know, obviously we've calculated all the amounts. There's approximately 60 rates assessments. It'll be a lower number of ratepayers because some of those assessments are held by the same ratepayers. And 60 of them, the adjustment amount is more than $100. And we're proposing that we'd contact all of them and notify them that the mistake's been made and look to, if they wish to put a payment arrangement in place so that they wouldn't pay the increased amount, and that would roll over to the next financial year when we would then correct the rate per hectare so that over the 2 years the correct amount was paid. And we think that's a reasonable solution, and it's certainly the most cost effective and administratively simple, and would leave them in the position, if they wanted to, of not paying any more than they should have. But if they didn't, I think as the number gets smaller, I think some of them would just say, oh, I'll just pay it as it is. They might be already set up on a direct debit, in which case it's going to be a small amount per each time. And then the amounts next year would basically be fairly similar to this year. It actually dropped slightly, whereas if we going by the LTP, there was obviously an increase in this year's rates. Increase next year, they won't see an increase next year. It would stay relatively flat. So that's what we're proposing is to do that solution. And if council agrees with that, we would the next steps is we would get on with writing to all of those ratepayers, and then hopefully have been in touch with them and sorted out any payment arrangements and penalty waivers, of course, so no penalties on any late payment would apply before the first payments come out on 31 October.
You want to touch on, and sorry if I missed it, the piece of land that was subdivided or that popped in and out.
Oh, the reason this occurred, it's quite complicated. What we strike, we take an extract of the rates database at various points in along the process. So when we prepare the consultation document, we get the rates database as at that point, and we do all the calculations, and that's what we consulted on. Then when we do the rates resolution in June, we extract the rates database again. At that point, a property had undergone a transfer in title or an amalgamation, and it had, another piece of land adjacent got amalgamated into that. The rates database for the flood and drainage schemes across all of them, as you would have seen yesterday when we did the liaison group workshop and the maps there, all of those classifications means that properties have to have the whole of their land area divided into the various classifications that they sit within. For some properties, it's relatively simple that they only sit in one classification, but the bigger the property, the more likelihood it is that it will sit across multiple classifications and needs to be split. At this point, the new property, the rating database, when it was extracted, had the ED2 classification had dropped off. So it meant that land area wasn't included in the total that the rates were apportioned over. So the rate take total remained the same, but we divided it by a lesser amount of land. To complicate things further, then we extract the rates database again to actually strike the invoices in August. And at that point, the property had the classification added, although it still had the ED2 rating area was still understated. So we will have to correct that one. We do get these sort of issues. They do occur every year. And if properties have changes like this, we correct them because the Ratings Act provides that you can reissue rates notices if there's been a change in the rate database. So for that property, you can do it. It's the same as we quite regularly get rates database updates for properties that get subdivided, and we can retrospectively go and rate the new titles. So yeah, the reason why we go and we do it at each point in time, of course, is we want although ironically in this case where the land area this one's done on land area, we want the ones that in particular, all the other rates types, particularly general rate, which is done on a CV basis, we want the most up-to-date rates database every time we do it because CVs are constantly being updated, subdivisions are happening. So that's why we do it. It's just unfortunate at this point in that timing between doing the CD calculation and the rates resolution calculation, yeah, this one has dropped out of the database.
Okay, we're going to have a test now on everything that was said in the last 5 minutes.
You are a bad and wicked lad.
Kate, thank you for the heads up when you spotted.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Nick. I have to be impressed, utterly express my how impressed I am that you dealt with this so quickly, because we got an email about this on, I think, Thursday of last week, and it's already got onto the council agenda, which is fabulously quick timing. So thank you. I think we exchanged emails. I think my problem with, I like the answer you've come up with, but the problem is the actual recommendation. And I think if we, what I wonder about too is that we adopt the option 1 approach as outlined in the meeting, as opposed to that other words actually don't make so much sense to me, because it sounds like we're not going to change anything. And does that make sense to you? Are you happy if we just adopt the approach as outlined in option 1? Oh, sorry, in option 1 as outlined at the meeting, because that gives us a much better flavour, I think, of what the answer is.
You're suggesting replacing 2 with
Replacing 2 with
said.
that we adopt the approach outlined in option 1.
It could just say option 1, comma, that is, leave that as is and correct in 2022.
No, but what it doesn't say is that there's going to be 60 people that are going to be changed or corrected or potentially.
Or you could just add the bit about the after that we'll contact the most affected ratepayers and discuss payment arrangements and penalty waivers with them.
Yeah, I have huge sympathy for not dealing with all of the ratepayers in this area, because it is an insignificant amount, but where it is up to $4,000 for some people, then that I think is something that should be discussed. So
are we replacing 2 with a council adopt option 1 as outlined at the meeting?
I think that gives more clarity to everyone, that we can go to a point in time and understand what that means.
Okay. So Kate, are you happy to move?
I'm happy to move 1 and
2 and 3.
thanks,
Before I go to a second, I'll go to questions and then I'll get a seconder. So this is questions. Michael?
Well, I'm just guessing that whatever communication we have with ratepayers will include an apology.
So basically,
is that the plan?
Yeah, I haven't thought about the exact wording, but
No,
we'd be pointing out that we're sorry that we got their calculation wrong and they've been overcharged, and how
Just
we
so
propose to fix it.
As long as we acknowledge that we stuffed up.
Excellent. So next taking that on board. Hilary?
I'm just wondering whether we could say incorporating the explanation provided at the meeting, because it's the description sort of in there, isn't it? Because that's sort of the wording of what you're suggesting suggests that it isn't what Nick said here, and it is this as further explained or sort of. You know what I mean? It's as amplified at the meeting or as
explained. Just
yeah.
So I think what you're saying is the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm just trying to so as that people don't think, well, it isn't what was in here. We have to go back to the meeting that what we've done is that the meeting replaces this, because the explanation is still generally what should be in there.
Report. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think council adopt option 1 as outlined at the meeting. I think it's pretty much what we're after.
Yeah, it's just that I had it. There was a disconnect between what those words and the proposed recommendation was and what I thought I was reading and what I think is going to happen. So I think a lot of it is because of the Rating Act.
Yeah.
True. So it's corporate services, but we probably need a bit of wording to clarify. If someone picks this up in 12 months' time.
Yeah, that's where I was going with wanting to have it.
I'm happy to say at option 1, where the 60 top assessed properties owners are contacted to discuss an alternative payment option.
Yeah.
That's one.
That is option 1.
Put in brackets maybe.
Yeah. And that no penalties will accrue. Sorry. It's council will adopt option 1, which means.
At the bottom line.
Yeah, sorry, bottom line. So, apologies.
In brackets or something.
Yeah.
And corporate services.
On the bottom line.
Sorry.
Maybe make that.
You're right.
Council will adopt option 1. Is it?
You've got the most difficult job.
That the
Okay.
top 60 properties or property owners be contacted to discuss alternative payment options, and that no penalty will apply to those properties. And the
What do you mean by top?
Yeah, 60,
that's the top,
60 most affected, rate affected.
highest assessed properties.
60 most assessed.
Yeah.
Highest rate
Impacted.
impacted.
Yeah, rate impacted, that's it is.
Yeah.
Rates impact.
Yes, rate impact.
Assessed.
Okay, so
And 2 goes. Yeah.
no,
What
what?
goes, it's,
Hang on.
Oh,
Improve
it's still
student
going
rate.
to correct.
It's like the
You're going
others.
to correct it, aren't you?
You have to
next
correct
year.
it and adjust it. for
What's
next
your
time.
advice, Nick,
Oh.
with regards to?
You still want that. I see that, and then three further clarifies the key bit that that will still contact the ones who have been most affected, but the 2 you still want there, because we're not going to adjust and like reissue an assessment this year, but as I pointed out in I think it was paragraph 38, it will mean that next year's amount will be adjusted so that the rate per hectare will be lower than what it would have been as per year 2 of the LTP. So that still reflects that we're going to correct the overcharge and the invoicing in next year's assessments.
It'll be the balancing act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sorry.
Perfect.
Sorry, does that mean that some people, no, if you've got, they're not going to be paying $4,000 a year more this year. That may be taken off, that they may pay up to that, and then next year there'll be no penalty, and then they get to pay that next year on top of their rates.
Yeah, so if you take the person who's they've got 2 properties, and unfortunately their 2 properties are the first and third biggest ones. So their 2 adjustments, or the amounts that have been overcharged, are the 2 biggest. So theirs are $4,000. So what would happen is we've invoiced them $4,000 too much this year, and what that would mean is next year, in effect, if we had have invoiced them correctly this year, then next year their bill would be going up. Yeah. So we will give them a bill. The bill this year is here. So the bill next year, will drop down. Yeah.
Oh.
So that means the $4,000 that they don't pay this year effectively just moves over to pay that.
Yeah.
But to get the number right from an invoicing point of view, we will be charging less next year than what we would have if we'd done it as per the 2 years LTP calculations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Repeat that back.
No, I get it. It's just that,
Yes, good.
Now I need a seconder for the 3 motions.
I'll second it. Does it have, we also apologise in it?
So it's going to be in the letter.
What Michael says.
That's
in
where the
it.
letter-
Understanding that the issue Michael
Yes.
raised, that Nick, you're happy to
Nick can do that.
take that on board?
Yep.
Thank you. Any further speakers? If not, I'll put those 3 recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
All the people.
From the chair to move that Carmen is that member, seconded by
Kate, seconded by Michael, sorry. Any discussion? Gretchen, sorry.
Yep, I'd like to ask some questions about it, if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely.
The paper is short, and I think it's important that we understand the context for it. Having been involved in these types of projects quite a lot in the past, I'm wondering when the ORC position on the governance group was put forward, whether it was part of the funding application and understanding for this project. Was it? Yeah, and then so what is the existing commitment to this? So that's the question, first of all. Is there one?
So the letter, which I think I circulated, I believe, okay, was fairly brief, and it only touched on those 3 points in the paper, 3A, B and C, in terms of what they were looking for.
Yeah.
But Brian may be able to help. Bruce, Brian's, sorry. Your microphone is, I don't think it's on. Thank you.
Look, maybe not everything I'll say will be strictly correct, but when Lloyd first contacted me about this role and the general opportunity, it was on the basis that he said that the government funding was tagged with an ORC representative on the board. So whether ORC first offered that up, I'm not sure, or whether it's quite simply it was just a matter of, I assume it was a matter of course, the government saying you need to have a local council representative on the board. My understanding is that the board meets 4 times a year, and that of course this is an area with a significant, significant water quality issues. So let's not underestimate what we're expecting that governance group to do. So it's a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, Gretchen.
So I guess that's kind of my point in a way. I think these are absolutely brilliant initiatives. I'm not speaking about this one. I'm talking about in general, I suppose, these types of initiatives, catchment groups and catchment groupings, and how ORC interacts with them is really important, given what Brian's just spoken on as well. And choosing whether to be a governor for them is an important decision for the council. Absolutely believe we need to support these groups, and as we know, Brian does that in another context as well, and the council invests. But I was looking again at the Southland model as well, Thriving Southland, which pulls together catchment groups, has partners who help invest in the projects, has independent coordination. So independence is really key. And the other thing that they note is really key is that it's grassroots. And the way that they describe that is that it enables direct bottom-up interaction with scientists and politicians to achieve their goals. It's independent, it's bottom-up, and it's direct voice of community. So ORC as a project partner is good. To me, ORC as a governor of these groups is not ideal as a relationship, because it steals some things away from community that we really want to sit with community, in my mind. I think that we should be going to these meetings. I think that we should be involved. I think we should be offering input, but not as a decision maker on a governance board. And it sets a precedent for many others.
Can I ask Gretchen a question?
Through the chair.
Through the chair.
Sorry.
That's why I'm saying to you, Chair, can I?
Sorry.
Is it set up so as that it requires one of us to be there doing exactly what you don't? So
I don't know.
If it does,
That's what
then
Lloyd-
it's our only way of
Yeah, that's
engaging
what I was
with
trying
it.
to establish, and I couldn't establish that from the answers.
That's what Lloyd articulated to me for a start. I may or may not have that right. It was just a verbal discussion.
Okay, Kate, I'll just pull up Lloyd's email if I can. But Kate.
I'm really happy to support this. I think for if a community group needs help, and often it is about getting ideas outside of that community or having different personalities being brought in, how and where they go for that is up to them. And I'm really happy to see us doing that, as we've done with Cozy Homes, and we've now got someone sitting on that. I think it's been frustration for the community that it's not. Carmen will be there as Carmen, sitting on there. She's coming from to ensure that the communication is going backwards and forwards, but she will have to sit back on some of these things when it comes around the table potentially. And that's that quid pro quo that you have. So
When she's back at this table.
There is an angst in that, but I think it's about where do you go and get some of that help from. And I know the frustration out in the community that sometimes that has not happened around this table in the past, and I really welcome that we will be standing up to that. And it's the same as we go on to TA groups and everything else. If we're asked to do that, then I don't see any concern in us doing it.
You know, I've got Lloyd's email in front of me, and I'm not going to repeat what the 3 bullet points which was in the paper, but essentially our request, this is Lloyd, is for one of the councillors to be part of our governance group. This would give governance experience as well as a connection to the ORC. That's essentially what they're looking for.
Okay.
So can I just now go to Brian?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to Marion.
Yeah, I'll just speak briefly, but just in reply to Kate, the person is an ORC representative. So if it was myself, then I'm there as the ORC councillor representative, and if I was unavailable or in due course, it'll be another ORC representative. And I think they actually appreciate that because it's actually a connection to an important entity in the region. It can actually just help sort of facilitate and discussion. And in reply to Gretchen, whether the person's actually on the board or not, I can only talk to my experience on the OCC. I think if I wasn't actually part of the board, I probably wouldn't be taken seriously. So what would actually happen is that you probably only get invited to some of the meetings. You know, it's just the way it is. You've got a new group that's forming, things happening. And unless you're sort of part of that, you're either in or you're sort of out to a certain degree. So it's a real bit of a challenging situation. It's a really challenging situation. You yourself, Mr. Chair, you know, you raised the issue, which actually surprised me, and I think you've probably got a point, you know, conflict of interest when it comes to funding, you know, these types of groups. And to be honest, that went straight across my head initially until you raised it. So it's a real balancing act, but I think it's still worth it because in the end, it's such an important thing, and rolling up your sleeves and helping that community is a good thing. And as a Malaysian people, and it's challenging and it's a balancing act. And one of the things on the OCC that I think works is that I encourage them to come along independently, you know, the people that are employed, and communicate to this group. So it's not through me, it's so you can hear and challenge and make everything accountable. And ideally the same with this group. Thank you.
Yeah, question. I'll go to Mary and then I'll come to you, Kevin. Sorry. Yep. I'm Gary.
When I was still am chair of Orokonui, but I think it was the other one. It was predator free, and I had to step out because I was chair of predator free Dunedin or Targa, whatever it is, and I had to step away from that. I think it was Kate actually who pointed that out to me. Quite well, anyway, and it was quickly pointed out, and I had to step away. It's a difficult thing because I totally agree with what Kate's saying and with what you're saying, Brian, about being a liaison. Okay, that's no problem at all. being able to say, oh, hang on, we can't do that right now because X is going to happen or whatever. And to reflect what you know from other groups, but to be a member of the board. So you could go there as a friend of the board or something like that, and it gets you around. But when you're a member of the board, your fealty is to the board, and that's where the clash happens. So I don't want you not to go there, and let's make up a title, but not a member of the bloody board.
Okay, before we go to Kevin, Gary and Alexa, Sarah.
Still doing the job.
Yeah.
Okay,
Give us
so
some advice.
we have been considering this, and our advice would be you could be a member, but if you are, it needs to be on your interest register, and there are times when you would need to evaluate whether you had an interest different to the public when decisions were being made around this table. So, for example, I don't know, let's just say somebody was on a particular group and we were making a funding decision
Or a canoe,
for something.
because we do make funding.
Then
I've got to
you would,
off.
the best practice would be to not participate in that discussion or in that decision. So it doesn't you're not fully precluded from being a member, but it's how you manage your relationship between what the group is doing and the decisions that are made here that is important.
Thank you. Going to Kevin, Gary, Alexa, Hillary.
Yep. Probably just back to
And
Sarah
Michael.
now.
And Michael.
And Michael, goodness gracious.
Thank you.
So a conflict. So if the councillor that was on the board came back and gave us a report from that group, that would be no problem?
So really, it's like any other conflict of interest. You've got to look at these the two sides of the equation with conflicts and interest generally. One is, is it financial? Do you stand to gain anything financially? And you would put yourself, I imagine you would think about not just you personally, but as a member of the board of the group, whether the group stands to gain. But then there's also the other piece, which is sort of less about finances, but more about what would the perception be of a member of the public of the multiple hats you're wearing, and the likelihood that they would see that you had an interest greater than anybody else. And so in that case, then you would need to manage the potential conflict in that regard as well.
Yeah, that just about answers me, I think. Yeah, that does. I've just got to now gel over what you've said. I'm not disagreeing with you. No, that's good. The other side would be it is not uncommon in business practice that when people are giving someone money to actually demand that there's someone on a board. So it's probably a balancing act.
Yeah, I suppose private business,
yep.
A little bit different to the statutory roles that you have and play, and also the statutory requirements you have under there's a particular act which escapes my mind that's very specific about your financial interests, and also the guidance of the Office of the Auditor General around both financial but also non-financial interests, which, by the way, they've just refreshed if you haven't seen that.
And sorry, just adding to that, Chair, is that aren't we at the moment with a lot of our funding things around the billion trees and all those sort of funds that have been going around, actually the likes of MPI and that are asking us to have governors on these groups that are looking after their money. And establish, I think of the Thompson's Creek setup, aren't they asking for governance from us to be part of that? I might be wrong on that one particular one, but I do recall.
So I understand MFE is looking to set up a governance group, and they would see ORC would be part of that. The Thompson's Creek would be a project that governance group would oversee. We also, through the offer of the chair, will potentially be providing secretariat support.
Slightly different.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I'm just trying to get all the whole picture.
I'm just trying to think of my brother, who seems to be on 15 bloody directors.
So the Wallabies, Walding Pines, MPI funding requirement for governors to be
with
other
Wallabies.
To be involved.
I probably should have remembered the Wallabies one, shouldn't I? That's all right.
Go back to my order. Gary.
You're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Look, for me, listening to it, I think we're overthinking this a little bit. The fact that we have been asked to be part of it is obviously showing that they wish to have us there. I think if Carmen as a representative should play a very effective role. I think back to my previous role on the TB3 committee representing ORC, and you go there and play your part for the TB3 committee. Are you getting some feedback? I'm hearing feedback back.
Mic's off.
Mic's off.
Can hear you.
Hear them?
You are hearing me okay though?
Yes.
Okay. So when I was on the TB3 committee, I played my part there as part of the TB3 committee, but representing ORC. And then when it come to managing conflicts, then conflicts were managed, and it's just up to each individual to do so. So I see no problem. I think we are overthinking it a little bit here. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexa?
I have the same position as Gary in that I think we're going too far on this. I think that those groups need a liaison person. And I mean, if we're really worried about it, we could be a person that doesn't vote on those groups, but that does water things. No, I think it's probably reasonable to not vote on them if we're worried about that. But I really feel that I don't think that we compromise ourselves by having that in-depth knowledge as opposed to insider knowledge of what's going on there. And I think it's important that we're there to help, support, find the right people to talk to, help them drive things, and it shouldn't impact our ability to vote around this table, in my view.
Okay, thank you. Michael.
Thank you. I'd like to endorse the views of the two previous speakers. Common sense should apply. There's been a lot of overthinking of this issue in the last half an hour. It's the liaison role that's critical here, and it's a liaison that has effect both ways, especially during decision making. So the last thing I want any ORC appointee to do is step out of playing a full role in the decision making that we make because they happen to have this role with the catchment groups. We'll never need better guidance, and there could never be a more appropriate introduction than to have that person as we make the decision. So it would be absurd, in my view, for them to withdraw from that conversation.
Thank you. Hillary, then Michael Decker.
I'm with the previous speakers here, but I'd just like to reflect one small additional thing. I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference whether you're on the board or whatever, because a lot of these sorts of groups are likely to not operate in voting sorts of mechanisms anyway. And I think that if you're on a group like that, however you are, whether you're an official representative or you're not, or you're, so long as you have got speaking rights and are getting in amongst it on a group, you need to just probably take a step back in some other cases around the table. But I think it's very important for us to be in those things. And if we're an official, one of ours is an official representative from us, that also allows for the possibility of that person to have a deputy, if the group doesn't mind, who would be there in the absence of that person, which I think is a really useful thing. So we give them our taonga, namely one of us, and when they come back to us, then there are some things that they need to just be careful about when they come back. My view.
Michael, yeah.
What's unresolved for me, Mr. Chairman, is whether or not MPI told this group, and they are a group, not a board, let's stop using that word, that they had to have an ORC representative. According to Brian's version of his conversation with Lloyd, that's what Lloyd said. His email to you does not indicate that. Gwyneth talks about the Thompson's one where MFE is saying you need an ORC person on the board. I'd like some clarity about this. Does Sarah know about government departments saying you must have an ORC person there? Do you know as our chairman that this is going on? If not, it's a cheek at least.
Sorry, I don't know. I couldn't tell you with any confidence about whether there's anything contractual or any requirement. Unfortunately, Gavin's not with us today. He would have probably been able to say, but I can't on the spot, but I can get you the information.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, all this talk of boards and governance, I think, is a bit overstated. The catchment group, and we know them, we've known them for years. We know how they operate. They're an informal community group who happen to have struck it rich with 1.8 mil. Well, good on them. But they're not asking for us to go to a boardroom and sit down formally and pass resolutions. They're asking for one of us to...
Bit of help.
Yeah, go and give them a hand and keep them up to date with ORC matters and LWRP matters, all the stuff they're interested in. That's cool. That's what Carmen will do. I think we are really, really overstating a lot of this.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Carmen.
Thank you. I take the role as what Councillor Deaker has said, though it is good to have this discussion. Now, what I'm going to tell you is you might change your mind. If you look on my register, I do have a sibling that has a dairy farm down that area. Now, in light of me telling you that, you may decide now to change your mind and not have me. If it was a liaison person and I didn't have voting rights or anything like that, I think I'd do a really good job. And I think I'd be great, and I relish the challenge, and I thank you, Gretchen and Brian. But I'd also like to just make that point clear, because we may now have to go back and just say, look, I think it's just a liaison role. I mean just a liaison role, because I think it would be fantastic, and I spent the first 3 years of my term down there, and I've continued where I can until COVID to try and build that relationship up. But what I've just told you needs to be out in the open, and it is. So I think it would be good to know and have that confirmed as a liaison role. And I think it would tidy it up for all of us that have got unanswered questions.
Can I have a quick question?
We're going to go to Amanda in a moment, but Marion first.
Yeah, just a quick question is, bloody hell, you are not the FMU person, are you?
Well, we talked about that. This is the other thing.
Okay.
That's another conversation we need to have.
We have had a conversation.
Yeah.
Amanda.
I was just going to say I'm happy to follow up with the group and get you more details around the governance piece and what the requirements for funding were.
Well, I don't think they're in that big a hurry. Brian will
I think it's a
correct
great
me if
idea.
I'm wrong. It's not a drop. I shouldn't use this term, but a drop dead date to have this back to them by end of play today.
I wouldn't have thought.
No. Okay.
Can we ask them at the same time whether we can have a replacement person?
Yes.
If we're going to ask them more about it.
Yep. Okay. Happy for that too. So you'll move that it lies on the table?
I'll second. Probably get married to second. Yeah, you better second it, not me. But
position substitute councillor.
Does that cover off the MPI requirements?
Yeah.
Yep, cool. Seconded by Marion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to recommendation. This is item 8. Recommendations adopted at committee meetings. Would someone like to move 8.1, the implementation committee recommendations that the council adopts the resolutions of the 8 September 2021 implementation committee?
Happy
Move
to do that. Yep.
Carmen, second Brian.
Yep.
Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And then with the recommendation, moved Michael Deaker, that the council adopt the resolution of the 8th September 2021 Governance, Communications and Engagement Committee. Seconded. I'll second. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Moving on to 8.3 Data and Information Committee, the recommendation moved by Marion that the council adopts the resolutions of 8th September 2021 Data and Information Committee. Seconded Alexa. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Regulatory Committee recommendations that the council adopts the resolutions of 9th September 2021 Regulatory Committee. Gary's moving. I'll second. Any discussion? Hillary.
Sorry, can I just ask generally when, and I haven't looked at the minutes to see, in the minutes, does it say that the meeting resolves such and such? The motion?
Depends what the item is.
In the Governance, Communications and Engagement Committee,
Okay.
is there a resolution that says request job descriptions for chair and deputy chair?
Yes, there is.
Isn't that the resolution right in front of us?
Yes, so
That's what the committee passed.
yes, but I'm saying, does that mean that they can't pass that resolution, which says they're going to do something? Should those resolutions all say recommend to council that we do such and such?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I had the same question.
Do you see the point?
Yes.
Because
Recommendations
they're not, they're not doing that. Yeah. So should we, in all our subcommittees, say we resolve to recommend to council that they?
I think Amanda's got an answer, possibly.
It's probably one word, pedantry.
Yeah, not off the top of my head. We can look into it and come back to you. I think this is.
Yeah.
Get the terminology.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It just came to the top of my head and I thought that.
Suppress those urges, Hillary.
And all the other ones?
No, not the other ones.
Not the other ones.
Come on, we've got to stay on task, please. So that's Regulatory Committee. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Moving on to item 9, Chairpersons and CE's report. 9.1, my report and the attachments, queries, comments.
A question on para 1, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
That was a good meeting, and thanks for reporting on it thoroughly. At that meeting, Mayor Hawkins indicated that the City Council was imminently making a decision on parking. And suddenly nothing happened, unless I've missed it somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, they're just dealing with the one-way in George Street in the last 24, 48 hours, but I haven't heard anything about parking either.
I think it's just a standing resolution. We're going to have a resolution about parking. Each time they have a meeting, they have a resolution. Park it.
We will watch that space.
Next time you're talking to Aaron,
yes,
jog him by the shoulder and say, what happened to the parking stuff?
No, good as gold. Noted. Alexa.
On the same thing, it says here that there's general agreement that a formal joint governance structure with clear objectives could be worth pursuing. This option is to be followed up by councillors from both councils. Is that something I should take on?
But remember the conversation.
I'm trying to.
Yeah, no, oh, sorry. Well, what I can recall the conversation, there was Jim O'Malley, yourself, and Michael. And remember, Michael had the whiteboard.
Jim and Alexa.
Yeah,
Was it
so
Jim Alexa?
that's right. And I got in touch with Jim and I haven't heard back from him. I will chase him up.
Okay.
Jim, if you're listening, I'm on your back.
I think it was Michael's idea, but I think it sounds like it was
That's right.
Alexa.
That's exactly
I made the
right.
presentation
Yeah,
and I got
no,
Rob.
I
We'll just
wrote,
pass to
thank you
somebody
for
else.
that.
Okay.
I'm not sure what we're doing about mana to mana at this point. We'll come back to that. That's lovely. Thank you.
Something, are you right?
Yeah, no, fine, Tim.
Brian, and then Marion.
Yeah, and maybe just moving to item of the mayor was here at a particular meeting or whatever. He said he was quite happy to use our offices, but wasn't that happy to use our governance in relation to South Dunedin. So, I've read the report. So where's that actually at? Is that basically, is that it? And that this Jonathan chap is just going to inform us from time to time? Is that?
I think this is the first step, and I'm not sure what the second step will be if we're not happy with the first step, because I think we'll be back to where we were. But I think we need to give this a go and see if we feel that we are well enough informed. Once Jonathan reports to us, I think the first report potentially will be about the time that DCC, ORC are working on their draft budgets for the 22-23 year. So we hopefully may have him coming along prior to Christmas or late November or something like that to highlight what potentially a work program may look like. He currently is sort of scoping out, what that work program may look like. That's my understanding. So to answer your question, Brian, this may not be the silver bullet. It may be a step towards it, but like I say, we may not be satisfied, and we'll go back to square one.
Do we have an MOU with the ECC?
No.
There was something in one of the reports that talked about in the appointment of that person.
Yes.
Yeah, because it just seems to me that until we get one, we're going to be forever in this grey area.
That might be a good idea.
And so that sort of reaffirms where we're at from an officer staff perspective, but also, what's the ORC governance role in South Dunedin? Otherwise, we're just going to keep talking around it. So if we don't have enough, or even if we've got one, it needs to be updated. But we need a clear understanding. I don't believe there is a clear understanding from council to council on this really important matter.
The sound of it, there may well be a staff MOU, but who knows? We don't know.
I think I can help a wee bit here. Going back to the days when I was a member of the South Dunedin Action Group, Peter Bodecker, SCE, came to a meeting we had at St Patrick's Church in South Dunedin and said he was negotiating an MOU with his equivalent, whoever it was in those days. Would have been Dr. So-and-so, I've forgotten the name.
Pedrose.
Correct, yeah. And I'm pretty sure he produced such a document at this table, but that has got to be at least 4 years ago. So it might have got lost in the file somewhere. And it would need to be looked at again because things have changed.
How much do we pay for Jonathan's?
I don't know the number. There'd be a question for Gavin.
I think there's a
formula, is it?
Well, no, but not sure that we should be talking about an individual staff member's salary.
Not of their salary. I'm talking about the proportion.
Yeah, it's a budget question rather than a person question.
Yeah, it's not about.
Yeah.
And
no, we can seek that from Gavin.
Is it appropriate to have a motion on this matter?
Yep.
Yeah, if you wish. Yep.
To establish a fit for purpose MOU.
Just put your mic on, please.
Yeah, to establish a fit for purpose MOU between the ORC and DCC on South Dunedin / Harbourside.
For purpose.
Well,
unless somebody's got some better words.
Get rid of fit for purpose because it doesn't add anything.
Okay.
Both at governance and staff level.
Yeah. Both governance and staff level. Okay, get rid of the fit for purpose.
I mean, we work collaboratively on South Dunedin all the time.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not sure if we've actually got an MOU. It doesn't really.
Mr. Chair?
Oh,
Just hang on, Michael. I'll go to you in a minute. Brian, can you just hold that thought for a moment, because we're trying to move forward without actually sort of knowing what we've currently got. So until we clarify that.
Well, is that the motion to staff to report on what we've currently got?
Yeah, that's
sure.
And what MOU is? What
Once
MOU?
again, hold that thought. I'll get a seconder in a moment, but I'll go to Michael Laws.
Well, the way I read 2, 3, 4 of this chairperson's report is that there doesn't seem to be a role for governance other than being informed from time to time. And that just seems bizarre to me. I think we have to, as a council, determine our policy going forward, what it looks like. I don't mind having a background paper to that effect, but the idea that staff from both councils are going to hive off and do stuff themselves without governance giving some pretty clear directions as to principles and policies seems fated to be a bad decision. So I'm asking, particularly when I look at paragraph 4, is there an intention for this to come back to, I guess, policy, and for us to frame a vision, a program, a policy, a guideline, a set of references going forward?
Thank you. So maybe, Brian, what you're asking can perhaps include a bit more direction, what we're actually asking staff for, not only what exists in terms of the current situation, whether it's the staff relationship, any other historic MOU or whatever, but also thinking about putting some stronger direction around what we're looking for in the future. Something along those lines. Gretchen.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think Michael Laws has actually struck exactly the right chord there. And it's what I've said for quite some time as well, is that we need to have a position ourselves on, first of all, understanding what our responsibilities in existing legislation are saying, and then where we sit, rather than deciding what the structure for a relationship might look like. We have to have a reason for sitting in a room together and talking and holding hands. So rather than just sitting back and endless discussion, Michael Laws is right. We have to create some sort of context and position ourselves. I think a background paper probably would be good. We've had one before that's very detailed, almost got to this point, and then I think it was elections, and you know how that happens. Yeah.
Thank you. Hillary and then Alexa. Oh, sorry. Marion, Hillary, Alexa.
Yeah, we're a new topic.
No, sorry, we're on the same topic.
Yeah,
sorry.
Okay. That's right.
You're good? Okay.
Yeah, mine's new too.
New. Okay, Hillary.
I'd like, if we're getting a report, which I like the sound of, about where we're going, there's a wee bit missing here. How did it get from staff of both councils talking to each other to funding a joint program manager without any programs that we know about? So if we're getting a report, let's find out how it, because that would give us some idea of what was intended to be happening there.
Yeah, what I can recall with the report that came through strategy and planning, I reckon it was late last year, maybe about November, December, and it talked about a integrated work program that could possibly have a governance lens over it. So there's already a work program for South Dunedin where collaborative work is happening between both organisations at a staff level, project, identification.
That's what I thought, but I didn't think there was a person going to be appointed.
But that's a good idea to get it. The report can cover off what's happening currently and what potentially could happen in the future, and the positioning idea that Gretchen's alluded to about what is our position going forward in terms of influencing the decisions, etc.
Can I help with that?
Absolutely, Sarah.
Right. So first of all, we don't have. I'm not sure what Peter Bodica was working on, but we don't have one. We don't have a staff MOU. I think this resolution. I mean, there was an initial resolution, Brian, that you asked for.
That might have come through Forbury or something.
I can pull it up.
Or did it? Because I'm pretty sure that we did have. I'm sure Gavin bought you a paper that said. I'm sorry, I'm stretching my memory banks, but I'm sure there was a paper which is where there was some talk of a project manager, and I think it's where governance was also discussed. I will follow up with him. He's sorry, he can't be here at the moment. He's travelling. Anyway, there is an MOU in the making. The program's been prepared, and then we would be in a position to draft a second MOU, so not a staff one, on collaboration between two organisations that deliver the joint program. So that would be an overall.
Can I just go back? I've pulled up the report to Strategy and Planning, 24th of November.
Yeah.
And this is ORC role in South Dunedin Harbourside adaptation collaboration with DCC. We received the report. We note the program of work being developed by ORC in relation to South Dunedin and Harbourside's natural hazards adaptation. And we select one of the options presented in this paper for continuing to collaborate with Dunedin City Council on delivery of that program, and we authorise staff to engage with the DCC to progress the preferred option and to report back. And recommendation 3 was the option to have the governance lens.
Yeah. So on the 12th, we're just looking at a paper from 1 December.
Same thing. It's going to be easier when the resolutions are all there in a collection.
That's right, and it talks about all the governance and everything.
Yeah, but I think the reality is we're not getting governance collaboration, are we, on South Dunedin? So, we're getting staff collaboration, and I still sense that. I love Gretchen's word in terms we've got to establish a position. A report on establishing position and a potential MOU with the DCC on South Dunedin governance and staff. There's still another step, or maybe we just haven't actioned the step that we'd previously agreed.
We have. Somebody's been appointed to do whatever it is.
So, Brian, you're working on a motion to cover off the discussion we've had in the direction to Sarah and the team to come back with a paper.
What would you recommend out of that discussion, Sarah?
Well, perhaps we just come back to you with a paper clarifying current arrangements for South Dunedin.
Yeah, and with reference to position and reference to potential MOU, governance and staff. Cool. So whatever Sarah said.
We'll come back to you shortly, Di. Marion, then Alexa, and then Carmen.
Okay, dear, it is attached, it's your letters. Okay, it's a letter from David Parker to you.
Oh, yes.
Which is about freshwater planning process, about the notion of notice of motion on the Manuhira Kia. The part I want to pay attention to is assurances sought from Council. I request written confirmation that the Council is committed to delivering a no, by the way, it's written confirmation, not oral confirmation, not in the chat.
No.
That the Council is committed to delivering a robust freshwater plan within the agreed 2023 timeframe, and that the plan will make the whole thing about the minimum flow. Please therefore advise when the council expects to make a decision on these flows. Now, when are you going to do that? Sorry, love.
You heard the conversation before, didn't you?
Yes, and I didn't think I got that all that clearly. I'm sorry. I'm being specific.
Andrew doesn't know.
Well, that's the thing.
We've got a meeting on the 8th of October and we're going to have a report back.
13th of
October. Sorry, I'm last one.
Okay.
13th of October.
That's okay.
And we're going to have a report back.
Correct.
Can we say following that meeting?
Yes.
We expect
no.
But no. So we're talking about responding to this letter, correct?
Yes, we are.
Ideally, when we've got the information to be able to meet the minister's questions, I can't see a point in responding until we've got that information.
Okay, then I want to know, as a member of the council, is that going to be next month, before December, halfway through the bloody year, next year? When is it going to be?
13th of October, and we're today the 29th, aren't we?
No, excuse me, I think the question that you've just been asked is, when will we do that? And the answer is really that I think you're saying is that after that meeting, we will clarify when we might clarify when we might be doing it. We might know then. We will know more after that meeting, not that we will set the time at that meeting, that we will know more after that meeting is the best we can do at this point. I'm respectfully suggesting as chair that would be the best you could do.
We'll be much better informed after the 13th of October.
Okay, but then I want to express very sincerely my dissatisfaction with that answer. As a member of the council, at the moment, you're making me almost reiterate all the arguments, but we've made a commitment, and any delay that we make in settling this issue and responding to the minister gives permission for every other FMU to play the same game. And that's what really makes me nervous, that we can't. Now, if you just said to me after the 13th of October, I think I'll be in a position to reply to the minister, but you're not. You're saying, well, you're not saying that. You're not giving me anything.
Look, I don't know what's going to be said on the 13th of October, because I'm not responsible to go out and find that information and report back. That's an instruction through Sarah, and staff will. Gwyneth is the person that will be sitting at the other end of the table to inform us. Would that be correct, Gwyneth?
Yes. So TAG has, as everyone in the room's I'm sure well aware now, TAG has met. TAG is finalising their report, but haven't finalised it. But the intention is that report will give an indication of work the TAG feels should be done and timeframes under which over which they think that could be achieved.
Thank you. Alexa, then Michael Laws, then Brian.
Mine's a different subject. Do you want to move on?
No,
or do you
we'll
want to
deal
carry
with
on
this one and then we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Michael Laws.
Thank you. I just want to clarify. My understanding of the minister's letter is that he's seeking an assurance that relating particularly to the Manuhira care, we will have that ready to go by 2023.
No, it doesn't say that.
Oh, wait on. Yes, it does, Marion. It doesn't mention any other date. It mentions 2023. Can you clarify that for me, please, Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, what was that last comment, Michael?
Can you please clarify that for us? What are the dates that the minister mentions in his letter?
He says, please therefore advise when the council expects to make a decision on these flows. That is a distinct and different sentence. It is, sorry, it's got a full capital letter and a bloody full stop.
So the paragraph Michael Laws is referring to is the last paragraph assurances sought from council, correct?
Correct. That's
Yeah.
what I'm looking
So
for.
that's the date you're referring to, correct?
I'm just clarifying that says 2023. I haven't misread it.
Agreed.
But
Thanks.
Now I'm trying to remember. I think it was Brian.
Yeah. I mean, just to be helpful, I would have thought, I mean, from memory, I'm just trying to find the letter. There were two issues, as
93.
As Marion has said. One was whether we were going to achieve the robust freshwater plan within the agreed 2023 timeframe, and the second one was in relation to the flows on the Manahiri Kia. I would have thought, hopefully, after the meeting on the 13th, strategy and planning, that we should be in a position to be able to comment on the first one, staff and governance, whether we're focused on achieving the 2023 timeframe. Is that fair, Sarah, Andrew?
No, the tag won't be making any comment on the 2023.
I'm not talking about tag. I'm just saying that the 13th, on the 13th, we should be in a position to whether we've got confidence to deliver a freshwater plan within the 2023 timeframe.
Staff do have confidence. We've already nothing has changed for the staff. We do have confidence.
So I mean, like, staff have confidence, and then it's up to governance to come to a point. So all I'm saying is, ideally on the 13th, governance will have that debate, and time will tell what was resolved. You know,
Well, we already know you're confident.
I have no plans to prepare a paper or anything. So if you want to have the debate, you need to,
Well, I assume we'll, you know, as the chair says, we need to see what is presented on the 13th to see whether we have confidence and understand the detail.
No.
So we'll need to.
So that is the tag report back as requested on the 25th, and that speaks specifically to the Manahiri Kia program of work. It doesn't speak to the whole land and water program.
Doesn't it? We're not getting that on the 13th. Okay, I assume we were.
That's not tags set up for. It's to report back on the.
Okay, so that's my question then, Mr. Chair, is when does governance actually have that debate about whether we are committed to delivering a robust freshwater plan within the 2023 timeframe, and when does this council have this debate and come to some conclusion so that a letter can be written to the minister on the Manahiri Kia flows? When does that happen?
Earlier today, when we dealt with the update, the 6 monthly date update, we made it pretty clear that we're on track to meet.
Yeah, no, that's the last 6 months. What about the next?
But we would be, you know, we talked about, building up capacity, capability, et cetera, et cetera. He understands, okay, that's a retrospective report, but we made it pretty clear we're on track.
Yeah, I know we're on track, but I mean, I don't think it's me that has to point out that we've had a few fish hooks on the Manahiri Kia. What are the issues that this council, what are the uncertainties, or is everybody going to say, are all councillors basically say here and now that we're committed? Yes. They're not going to say, as I've heard, yes, but as long as a particular stakeholder group is happy or whatever, there seem to me to be a lot of conditions opposed as to a blanket. We're going to deliver this to the best of our ability, and there it is.
To attempt to answer your question, Brian, I've got no problem with us having the discussion and debate about meeting the commitment that we've made to the minister in November 2019. I've got no problem with that, and if that's prior to responding in written form to the minister, that's fine.
2023.
Yes, if we need to reconfirm that, I've got no problem with that.
Yeah, well,
I don't think anyone around the table has got a problem with reconfirming that.
Yeah, well, when's the appropriate time for that?
Sarah, a suggestion?
I mean, it's a really governance call.
Okay, 13th. What about the 13th of October?
At the moment, you've got resolutions that you've already made
Yeah.
that say you're committed and you will, and that you've committed to the approach to be taken to the land and water plan, and you've committed to the science approach to be taken for the land and water plan. So staff
and we've agreed to a report that says that's that we're on track.
Basis. However, though, there is now a question from the minister. He has seen fit to ask the question again.
Yeah.
I think that, we can bring you a paper, we can help you with whatever you might need, but ultimately that steer is a governance steer, not a staff steer.
Okay, well, my question then is, Mr. Chair, like if we get into a situation like the Manahira Kia, where a particular community, here we are in May 2023 and the community says, well, some councillors believe that the community is upset or whatever. What's their reaction? Because we've made a commitment. What's their reaction? Because over the Manahira Kia, what I heard was from at least one councillor was that there was 100 people that it impacted, and therefore there were various concerns.
900.
900. Okay. Well, thank you.
Can we just go back to why we're having this conversation?
I raised it.
And that's fine.
And it's not actually, it's slightly off at the moment.
Okay. So,
because there is that second sentence, please therefore advise when the council expects to make a decision on these flows.
Yeah, so there's two issues though. I'm talking on to 2023 and then Marion's...
Can we deal with 2023 first?
Yeah.
Okay. So on the basis that our position hasn't changed, we made the commitment November 2019. When it comes to the time that we need to make a decision again to reconfirm our position, I'm happy to talk to Amanda to arrange a special council meeting that would align at the similar time when we have the information that hopefully will come, I'm sure it will come forward on the 13th of October. If, we can't, we're going to make a decision around, the decision on 2023 is existing, so nothing's changed. All I'm saying is that formally, if we need to get together as a council to reconfirm that position, I'm sure we can align it up when we discuss on the 13th of October the follow-up from the request from the 25th of...
But one thing that has changed, Mr. Chair, is that the Minister has said that he himself is concerned whether we will meet this time frame. He has actually said that. So I think, yes, I agree with you. Yes, it is appropriate that we do revisit this at an appropriate time to put clarity and to make it quite clear for all parties. And then Marion's point, the Manahira Kia particular flows.
I think we need to finish the first one. We're just talking about 2023 right at the moment. Gretchen, then Hilary.
I think the answer to that question that he poses of when do you think the answer will be is we can't decide it on the 13th. It will be when we notify in 2023 because TAG isn't a finite process. When they get to saying what science they think needs done, it'll be the drift study, which we know needs certain conditions. So if we don't have those certain conditions, then we're left hanging with potentially members still of the TAG group who say we haven't completed the science. Let's say we do all the studies that everyone says on the 13th they want to do, but then they aren't able to be done to the manner that they want them done for any number of reasons. They're still not happy. So we can't say on the 13th, definitely we'll have a date when we're going to have to say that the date is when we notify in 2023, when we won't have any other option but to come up with something. That would be my thinking.
Or by.
Yeah.
Or what? Sorry,
okay.
Can you say that,
Hilary?
Or by.
I said not on. Gretchen is, in my view, precisely right. And I don't understand what really the minister is trying to achieve by suggesting that somehow we will set a minimum flow for the Manuhira Kia, which will be in place in any way before we notify the Land and Water Regional Plan, most likely close to the end of 2023 on a good day. If we did what we did with the Arrow and Cardrona, all we did there was to note that these flows would be in the Land and Water Plan. In brackets, you could say at the end of 2023. So he's saying, when will we decide the flows? The flows will be decided, as Gretchen says, in the Land and Water Plan. So the making that decision, despite the fact that we look like we've made a decision now, if we made it now, or that we delayed or we're not delaying it or anything, whatever happens, when it will be there, will be at the end of 2023, and that's assuming that when it comes before the council, the next council, at the end of 2023 for noting, that is what that council decides to put in that plan for noting. So it will not be, if we said to the minister, in March next year, we expect to have all the things from TAG, which would give us some confidence from that these are the figures we might be working towards. It still wouldn't be in the Land and Water Plan there. Nothing would happen in March magically if we said we expect to find that we're all happy with some figures by then. It still wouldn't be anywhere. So I don't know what he's trying to do, except so far as he might be trying to push us into doing what we have done in the Arrow and Cardrona, which still doesn't get us a figure in anything until the end of 2023. And insofar as we do put anything and say, like if we did what we did with the Arrow and Cardrona, in the middle of November this year, all that would happen was that we get a letter from a lawyer that said this is of no legal effect. So I don't know what he's on about, wanting us to be making any decision now. And I think that Gretchen's quite right that it will be in the Land and Water Plan. We will do it then. We are committed to doing it then. We have every confidence that we can do it by then. And to some extent, we could answer the minister now saying, we are fully committed. If you thought we mightn't be, we are fully committed to doing it before doing the Land and Water Plan by 2023, in case you thought we'd got off the boil. We haven't. We're fully committed, including any flows we want to put in the Land and Water Plan on the Manuhira Kia. We could say to them that now.
Yeah, and we should.
All right, love. Can I have just one tiny comment?
I'm reluctant, but go for
It
it.
just goes like this. I tried to say this the other day. Following the intention to notify, there was going to be an offer of money, which was to help farmers transition from the time it got notified in 2023. At the moment, what you're proposing is 2023 minimum flows get notified as part of the Land and Water Plan. People have had no surety up to that time as to where it might be going. There's been no preparation for probably change in what might happen in herd numbers or whatever. There's been no financial help from central government or us. All that is all going to come to pivot onto that place. I don't want to put up any more arguments. This is all on public. MFE are listening. Thank you.
I'm reluctant to, and we've had a fair look at it already, to go back down the track of relitigating the debate we had on the 25th. What I would like to see us agree to is when we get the information in front of us, whatever date it is, when we're informed about the progress either being made by TAG or an estimation of the time period that would be required, we then need to inform the minister. I've got no problem with that. And the other issue is around just picking up on Hillary's point. And yes, I agree, notification of a minimum flow and water allocation for the various catchments around Otago won't occur formally until the end of 2023, or in fact a little bit sooner than that, whatever. However, a direction of travel needs to be indicated for all of the FMU and Rohe across Otago over the next whatever months, 20 months or whatever it is, until the middle of 2023 or there or thereabouts. So I think we're getting, I think, bogged down again, and I just don't want us to end up, conclusion of this meeting, no further ahead. We've already heard from Gwyneth that there will be something coming on the 13th of October. I don't know what it is, but let's just wait and see. We may be better informed then to be able to reply to the minister. But once again, let's wait and see. Yes, if we need to reconfirm our position and our commitment to the minister, let's make that happen before we reply to the letter, so we can formally say we've met as a council, we've reconfirmed our commitment to having the land and water plan notified by 2023, and pass that information over to him. So, Kevin.
I'm just going to his actual letter, and the minister stated that there was a need to have environmental flows and levels. The need to have environmental flows and levels has actually been in the MPS FM since 2011, and he expected that we had sufficient progress on gathering data and scientific research to be able to make that sort of decision. The reality was, and that's probably why we had a 48% rate increase this year, ORC has not been in that position. Mrs. Gardner and the team have been developing a team to actually start and making sure that we can do all that work. They've developed a work plan to get us through to 2023. The science, the very group that was formed to inform the Manihira Care decision had not completed their task. They had not given us a report. So that process was simply asked to be completed by the group of people this morning called the A-team, which is probably pretty apt, to actually go and finish that job. So there is no, within my head, there is absolutely no reason at all to delay or to stop the progress to 2023. And after the words of Director Elsom this morning, her team is actually set to do that. So we can't sit here and wait and project whether there's going to be an earthquake, a tsunami, another COVID disaster, whatever, but no one has actually changed their commitment to finish to it. But we have to deal with things as they happen. So the minister, rightfully so, he sent a fellow Skelton down to sort us out, and even Skelton showed that we hadn't done the work, the appropriate science work. So what we are actually doing it is right now, and we're going to do it, and it'll be done to our very best of our abilities. So let's wait till the 13th, get the report from Director Elsom, and then we can give them some pretty clear-cut things as to when those figures will be available. We can't actually do it until then. So I'm comfortable with progress.
Thank you. Any further speakers on this matter?
I move that your report be received.
Thank you. There's some more questions. There's some more questions to come. Thank you, Michael. Alexa?
I think we need to decide some next steps for Mana to Mana. We had a good exploration of it in our workshop this morning, so we don't need to revisit that, but I think we need to make a decision about some next steps.
Some suggestions?
Well, I think one of the ones is to have an extraordinary meeting of Mana to Mana, or a meeting reasonably soon, probably timed with a time when we're in Dunedin for other meetings, and try and bring together and just align the relationship correctly before we try and sign an MOU with as many councils as we can have. That would be my suggestion. I don't know if you had other suggestions, Sarah.
Could we ask them if that's what they would like?
Oh, if that's what they would like, something along those sorts of lines to just clear some of the things from the last meeting. I know they weren't too bad or whatever, but I do feel that there is a step in between this and signing our next MOU.
So
Where we are now and where we have to go.
So earlier today, we outlined some actions. So are you suggesting that once those actions are complete, that
we can't make decisions on actions at that workshop. We have to make them here, don't we, Sarah?
Yes, you do.
So those actions maybe we bring into a conversation here and decide them. I think that's what we have to do.
It was a workshop we had this.
It wasn't a workshop, it was a workshop.
That was what?
Even that.
Yeah.
That was an informal discussion, yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't.
So
I think it was not in public.
It was, no, that's right. So it would be adding a motion to this to
pick up on those actions and formalise them.
Pick up on what we talked about.
So we need to list them. There was the structural change to the governance structure so that all councillors were on mana to mana. You've suggested an extraordinary meeting, which we would need to organise.
There's the cultural competencies.
Cultural competency training
Yeah.
for governors. I think.
Was it going to be a meeting of us alone?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Something different to what we've got to.
Which is not a meeting with us and Mana Whenua,
No, just us.
alone, to really understand what it is that we're doing from our point of view. Be very clear and of one voice.
Was that part of the competency?
You could make it part of that.
I'd like somebody to approach
Okay.
approach our iwi partners to talk about what we're thinking of doing and to see whether they consider that would be a suitable way forward rather than to...
That's a better idea.
They did say that at the meeting.
Okay, just go back one step. The other action was to review the Menehira care process to see whether there were some learnings from that.
That's right.
That was the third action. Gretchen.
So at the end of mana to mana meeting, Edward said that he was willing to sign the MOU as after having assurance from you to do something, which was to get together as a council and reaffirm that partnership. And we had a really positive mana to mana and went away feeling as though, great, we do want to sing from the same song sheet, but he wants assurance from us as a council that we all want to do that. And then, everything's, he said, still good for signing the MOU. So all the other things we've come up with aren't the embodiment of the partnership that was spoken about at that meeting.
I kind of felt that we needed to do something between now and then to show a willingness to be on track, because in response to his willingness to be on track.
Well, we're about to do it, Mr. Chairman. I think we're again elevating this to a level that doesn't need to go. Your report, clauses 5, 6 and 7, are you fulfilling your commitment to the mana to mana group? Absolutely. And I think if we are going to note your report, then we're accepting those points of view. If we suddenly now, any one of us or the totality, wants to say, no, we are not mutually committed to those 4 points A, B, C, D under your number 7, then we should say so. We don't need to have a special meeting. We don't need to trouble the other side of the partnership with a special meeting. We are going to note what you have said, and if we don't want to do that, we should say so. And then we can report back to the next mana to mana scheduled meeting with what this council has resolved today, to note that we have that partnership and it's based on those beliefs and mutual commitments. I'm perfectly happy with that.
I would like those 3 actions included in these recommendations, so then they flow through formally as a motion and as actions to follow up.
Are you able to read them out again?
That clears it up for all of us too, that we are all members of that group. And, you know, one of the clear things that he had a problem with was that only but that's all that's there.
People who voted that way weren't in
the first one was ensuring that every councillor got notification of the actual the actual mana-to-mana meetings.
There was a subtlety around that. Yeah. It was one thing to say, oh, you can come along or you're notified. I think it needs to become a committee of the whole. So when, you know, if you know, so you're not turning up embarrassed, have I crashed this party? And you can negotiate when a meeting is.
Or just be calm and conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
There's
So
another bit in the middle of that as to whether we're welcome rather than that it is a committee of the whole.
Okay.
Because they mightn't want a committee that has all of us and whoever of them. So, which is different from them welcoming any of us who want to go.
Okay.
I'm happy with any of that. I just think it needs.
Okay. So what I suggest the way forward, if we include the three recommendations for action points this morning, which would require at some point updating the standing committee membership, etc. But I would suggest I need to have a conversation with Edward because I think that would be wise if that's the outcome of council. I think we need to just advise them of that rather than just say we've changed the membership of Mana. I'd rather just raise that with him first, but that's an action point that that I can follow up with Edward. And the other two is obviously around the review of the Manuhira Kia, and the other one was the cultural competency.
Is a hand
training.
I think that's a better way to go than what I decided, or what I was saying.
Comfortable with that?
Good way to go.
Okay.
We debate.
We've got somebody with
Well,
a hand up.
I'm not sure whether I've got Michael.
I just want to raise a couple of issues here. First of all, I want to know what cultural competency is, but that hasn't been defined to my satisfaction. And I have a feeling that it's not cultural at all, but that it's iwi-based. And at that point, we're deciding that all the other cultures in Otago don't count for much. So I want to flag that right now. The second issue is I don't think this council's got a clue, not a clue, about giving effect to the Treaty of Waitangi and the key principles determined by the courts. We're into the sort of group hug phase at the moment. We're not into the public law phase, which is the part that affects us. And if we are going to progress this relationship solely with local iwi, then can I just say that we do need a separate item which we can discuss.
Okay. Thank you. Cultural competencies, we've already confirmed our annual plan with a performance measure, for want of a better word, where we have a target to lift. I think it's a staff.
It's a KPI for
It's
me.
a KPI for you. So that's already confirmed in our.
So I didn't do it because I don't know what it means.
Not in our CEO's targets, but also in our annual plan. So I'm just pointing that out. Brian, this is going to help progress the discussion.
Yes. Look, the one point that I do actually agree with Councillor Laws is, and it's in relation to something that Councillor Deek has said, that the words are there, if you agree with it, let's vote and let's get on with it. Well, actually, you know, the understanding of it and the implementation of it is, I suspect, it's quite a complex thing. It's one thing to express words and to say you're going to do it. It's another thing to be able to know how to give effect to it. And I think we've got some work to do there.
Fair comment. Now, just remember the MOU will come past council. I'm not sure what date. Next month. Thank you, Amanda. So it'll be an opportunity for us as a council to reconfirm the partnership arrangement with Mana Whenua. So are we happy to add those through? I think we are. They add those 3 actions in with the recommendation in the chair's report.
As the mover, I'm
And
happy to adopt those.
You second move.
Are you able to put them on the screen?
Is it?
Because we have got previous resolutions too.
There's a whole bunch of them, aren't there?
Yeah.
So the extraordinary meeting is no longer being promoted. Is that right, Alexa? The extraordinary meeting is no longer being promoted at this point in time?
I think we've gone past that.
Okay. Meeting? Is it bicultural competency or cultural? Okay, bicultural competency training. Review the Menahira Care to see if there are any learnings from that. Making sure, so the invites, so all councillors become members of Mana to Mana, subject to a conversation that I'm going to have with Edward.
Surrounded by sheepdogs.
And and that's it.
Yeah. And what did we have?
Don't say we, I mean
There was a previous resolution that Sarah, you articulated the words.
Sorry. Yep.
What did I say?
That must be written down, surely.
Staff bring back a paper on current arrangements for South Dunedin.
And opportunities for an MOU or with the DCC.
Yeah.
I think she's come back.
In consideration of future relationships.
Yeah, in consideration of future relationships.
Has the Menahira
Just one at a time,
learnings,
please. Hillary.
Yeah.
has the Menahira Kia learnings review got enough detail for Mrs. Gardner to understand what we would like from that review? Because we were hearing this morning, we got good stuff about learnings, what went well, what went not smart.
What went well, what went not so well this morning and things. Do we want that sort of review? Have we given enough information about what sort of review we might be wanting? I mean, we got it in the context of Mana to Mana, but if we're asking for a review, we don't want to send people off for various reviews, and it's a really good time to have a review about how that process has gone up till now. So how wide is that review? Have we given enough information about what we would like from that review?
Haven't agreed to one yet.
Well, so that action plan doesn't say we're going to do one. It says
It's helpful. It's just a wee helpful comment. It's just reminding you of something said earlier.
Oh, yeah, why not? Yeah.
I thought that this morning when we had the Mana to Mana conversation, we had a look at Edward's letter in which he said the things that he'd been unhappy about when he hadn't been included in discussion. There hadn't been a strategy and planning. There hadn't been a something and there hadn't been something else. It was the order of the things that motion came up and that it hadn't been discussed with him beforehand. And I think that's what he meant by wanting to review the decision-making in terms of including Mana Whenua.
Thank you. And that was straight out of the minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The steps that they felt that they hadn't been given an opportunity to engage.
But that's covered from A to B in your Mana to Mana principles of relationship.
Yeah. So to answer your question,
we didn't do it.
It relates now. Just jog my memory. So it relates to the steps we went through to end up where we landed on the 25th. And in light of what has been raised through Mana to Mana, it's a review of that part of a segment.
Yeah.
So it's not scoped out into anything else other than the steps we went through.
Okay. Sorry, I was just going to say, Gwyneth needs to talk about the review.
Okay.
Maybe I'm just wanting to maybe confirm in sort of the direction that Andrew's heading, which I don't. I was at Mana to Mana as well, but I think it was a shorter time frame than going back. I don't know how many years and reviewing the entire thing. I think it was just around, the last few months and the decision-making process over the last few months. Just to expand a bit on what I said on this morning, when iwi pulled out of MRG, I don't remember, was it December or around about then of 2019, that instigated a staff discussion. And the staff discussion led to conversations with iwi, which resulted in the paper that came to you in, I can't remember the date, April 2020 and 20, with the new proposed governance structure for the land and water plan. So in terms of that phase of the relationship, happy to reconfirm that with iwi, but that's how that resolved itself. And as I understand it, but they're probably best placed to say it, they are now happy with where they're placed in terms of each level of the decision making going forward for the land and water plan.
Thank you, Gwyneth. So if the words were added in, review the Manuhiri Care governance decision-making process.
I was just thinking that if we're reviewing that process, and I don't want to go back to, forever and things, that there'll be a right distance to go back. But like we got this morning on the RPS, where we had our learnings and things that went well, things that didn't go so well and things, especially since we're just about to go into another FMU, and it'd be good to do that. If we're having a review, let's sort of have it so as it covers in that sort of way too. As I say, not forever backwards, but for the last, maybe since that.
Yeah, I think this needs
rather than just our mana to mana thing, because, or to put it another way, if we are just going to do the subsection of that, which is an iwi related issue, then can we actually do the rest of it sometime too? Can we have a resolution that just says, can we generally do that review that has what's, before we get into the next one too much, and just in case there's anything we can learn, learnings is good.
I feel, Hilary, that my commitment at Mana to Mana was very much along the lines that, it wasn't ideal, and I didn't actually use the words, we haven't followed due process or anything like that, but I think this needs to be confined to the process, the governance decision-making process on the Manuhiri Kia in light of the Mana to Mana relationship. That's because that's basically what I touched on at the meeting.
Yeah, and in which case, can we ask that it be put on the agenda as an item for doing a review generally, but like we had this morning for the RPS?
It's not that I'm against reviews. I'm definitely not. But I am mindful that we have the same group of staff that we keep kind of loading up with different things. And we have been really clear through the Land and Water Governance Group meetings just of late that, we do only have a set amount of time. And so I'm just asking you to think about where you want the staff to focus their time. That's all.
Okay. All set.
Yeah, I think it needs to be, I don't want to just send off yet another report, and I fully appreciate that time and things. It's a question of, can we have it somewhere so as we can perhaps refine whatever we want, or while we're looking at, as we look at the land and water plan, because it's all part of the land and water plan really, isn't it? So
it is,
how the RPS learnings
that was part of the
go into the land and water plan learnings. It might be that's how it sort of fits in. So
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we had the RPS workshop today, was for you to be able to input in your thoughts about that. We've also said in the next little while, like 24 hours, come back to Gretchen if you've got other things that you want considered for engagement on the land and water plan. To be honest, I'm just wondering about how much more time we burn focusing on a more intense review when we've actually got the work to do.
Yes,
It is a bit of a tension.
I'll pull my head in and figure out how to feed it into the next part of the land and water plan or whatever.
Mr. Chairman.
Hang on, Michael. Gretchen.
Yeah, that's great, Hilary. My thinking is that we need to turn the telescope round. So we're trying to address the same issue, but a different way, I think. So in my mind, the best thing that we could do as a council now is to be really constructive. And the way that I think would be best to do that would be, how we started this morning on a workshop looking at constructive. What are the ingredients, I suppose? Yeah. And we can bring all the background stuff with us, but really think about what are the ingredients to success. And Hilary, you've got heaps of ideas you've been feeding in, and that's really good. And some of them will come from manuhira care, some will come from all sorts of other contexts. Feed that in, that's awesome. And also, if you can give us specifics as well, that would be really helpful, specific projects. I don't support a big review. I think that's going to actually be quite detrimental to this council when we really need to be pulling together and focusing on positive, constructive learning.
So, Gretchen, you're referring to that fourth recommendation, which...
Oh, I think somebody said before that their understanding of that was that it's... about that decision
no, cool. I'll get us. I'll second the motion. It's moved by Michael. I've seconded it, and the other 5 recommendations up there. Michael, are you? Is it a question or speaking to the recommendations?
Oh, I guess both. But I mean, I haven't had an answer to my question as to what cultural competency is. So I'm certainly not going to vote for it. We've got this glorious imprecision. I think it just means group hugs, but I'm pretty sure, that must be about it. The fourth one is the word is governance. Whatever staff might have done or might not have done relating to manuhira care. The question is to review how governance made its decision-making process. I mean, we stuffed up big time. There's no question about that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the mess that we are now. So the question is, how do we stop making messes when we have difficult situations? And so I think it's important as we go forward in many more potentially difficult situations that we review how best to avoid those in the future. And so I support 4 because it's looking at us as governors, not at staff. And so I don't expect them to play a huge role in it.
Thank you. Can you give me a guarantee that if we organise a workshop to understand or lift our understanding of cultural competencies, that you will be there?
No, did you not just listen to me?
Well, no.
Did you
Michael,
just not listen to me?
Didn't
I ask,
would you give
what
me
is cultural competency? It hasn't been defined.
Okay, so Amanda, if she turns her microphone on, she may be able to give an explanation.
Yep, there we go. So just to be clear, in terms of the discussion this morning, you're talking about bicultural competency. So the ability...
If that's the correct terminology.
Yeah, so bicultural competency would be looking... Rachel Wesley from Mana to Mana described it to the Mana to Mana group a few months ago, talking about it's the ability to understand through the world through a Te Ao Māori lens, which is, a bicultural lens. So usually it would cover a bit of te reo, it would cover tikanga, and it would cover a bit of Treaty of Waitangi as well. And that's what we're organising for staff at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I definitely won't be there.
So,
I've sat on the Maori Affairs Select Committee for 6 years. I was a mayor of a district that had up to 30%, almost 50% of our primary school children being Maori. I've got an A in public law for the Treaty of Waitangi. I'm sorry, but I can't see the purpose in this.
Thanks, Michael. Brian.
It's just to do with recommendation number 5. Are people okay about that wording? Gretchen, because you came up with some thoughts, and Sarah?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll understand what it is.
That's what we.
Yeah, it was just the keywords were position and potentially MOU
You're doing something that, cool.
to get some action.
No further speakers.
Councillor Deakin did move the number one, I think.
Yes, you wanted to speak to the motion, Michael? You're okay.
No, but I'm assuming you'll put them one by one, since Michael wants to vote against number 3.
I'll put recommendation 1 that we receive the chairperson's report.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Darling, just before we do this, there's a wee problem here about something that isn't on the chairperson's report.
Sorry, Carmen.
All right. Sorry, Gino, I've had my hand up every now and then, and it's not that I'm not interested in what you're saying, but I do have something else. Yeah, it's very hard to see with
not as often as I look to the right.
Thank you.
I don't know why that is.
Thank you, Chair Hobbs.
We need to talk about that.
Just before we go to those recommendations, and it's not here, though I'd like to touch on it because I'm getting harassed every day at my children's bus stop. We had you on the television. There was a strike to do with the bus payments. Can you enlighten me, please, as to what happened? It's just not in this report. Could we have an update, please? Sorry to be a pain, but...
I'll hand over to Sarah.
CEO's report.
It was
yes, but I'm not being awful, but our chair was fronting a television news clip.
Okay. Hey, I suppose first I need to say that, I mean, I was contacted whatever day it was last week and asked to be interviewed on TV1, and it was very much around the strike action and why it was happening, and around the living wage, why that hadn't filtered through to the bus drivers in light of the decision we'd made back in May of this year, May 27th, I think it is, and then we backdated the pay back to 1 July 2020. So that was why they had the interview. At that point, there was still staff were still negotiating with one of the contractors that provide passenger transport services in Dunedin, and I'll hand over to Sarah just to share with us the outcome of those negotiations.
So Richie's had their money for a little while now. So it was only GoBus that were involved in the protest, as I understand it. And we were in the middle of negotiations. As of yesterday, I signed the contract, which finalised those negotiations. And then today I have approved the payment. So as far as I know, it's all going through.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Cleared that up.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Well done. Thank you, Carmen, for raising that. So we're back to recommendation 2, that we request staff to arrange that all councillors will become members of Mana to Mana. I'll put that motion. All those in favour. Do you want to speak to that motion?
What was it? Didn't we not have in there subject to consultation with
Mana to Mana?
Yes.
With Edward. With Edward.
Yeah.
I think it was subject.
Yeah, I was going to talk to him
again. That's probably not that way's a bit blunt if it's not acceptance.
No, fair enough.
Sorry about that.
So subject to
Chair's consultation with
Mr. Ellison coming as well. Yeah. Okay. All good. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. I moved it.
You did. Okay. Signal by Carmen. Against? Carried. Recommendation 3, request staff organise a bicultural competency workshop. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Sorry?
Against?
Against.
Carried. Number.
Yep. I moved it.
Carmen.
Councillor Malcolm seconded it.
And Kevin. So you happy, Carmen, to move the next one, and Kevin?
Absolutely.
Review the Menahira Care governance decision-making process. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Against.
Carried. Did you want that recorded, Gretchen?
Yep.
Okay.
Did Michael want his against recorded? For 3? Oh, he wasn't asked.
We're at number 5 now.
Gretchen was asked.
Yeah. Brian, do you move number 5? Yeah, I'll second that. Seconded. Request a report on the ORC's position and potential DCC MOU for South D and Harbourside.
Or turning videos off. Oh, no, it's just a sign.
Well, I'm not sure what's the wording. The MOU for South Dunedin. Yeah, okay, for South Dunedin. Yep. That's cool. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. I think we'll just keep moving. We're moving on to slowly.
Literally.
Moving slowly.
Will it be helpful?
9.2, Chief Executive's report. Any questions or queries someone like to move?
Happy to move.
I'll move.
Move, Carmen. Seconded, Hillary. Sarah, was there anything you wanted to?
No, I'm happy
You're
to
happy?
take it as read.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Moving on to item 10, resolution to exclude the public. I'll move as outlined in the paper.
Before you do that,
Okay.
we're going to have a break at any time.
Got an idea.
Well, once we're in.
No,
Get into the public and then you can pass it.
We can do anything once we're in.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
I'll second. Michael, we're just about to move into non-public.
I'm just alerting you to the fact. Yeah, I'm alerting you to the fact that because of IT difficulties, when you go into private, I won't be at the meeting.
No, that's not true.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
It should work.
Should be right.
Michael.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're stopping the live stream because it's the end of the public meeting.
It's technology competency,
Righto,
not the other one.
righto, stay focused, come on. So it's been moved and seconded, and the 3 items to be considered in non-public in the minutes of the 25th of August council meeting, and also the RPS hearing panel, and also the third one is the 7.4 Kurawao sale. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. That concludes the public part of the council meeting. Thank you